The July 5th meeting, regular meeting of the Common Council, City of Oneonta is called to order. Clerk, please call the roll.
Mayor Grant.
Here.
Councilmember Murphy.
Here.
Councilmember Davies.
Here.
Councilmember Risberger.
Here.
Councilmember Lotarishio. Here. Councilmember Carson.
Here.
Councilmember Harrington.
Here.
Councilmember Radcliffe. Here. Councilmember Falco.
Here. And David Hayes, can you lead us in the pledge of allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And David, don't sit down. As long as you got you. You guys saw this. This is yesterday. It's from the Daily Star. Yesterday, the hometown board was an unqualified success. I think it went remarkably well. The reason it went remarkably well is thanks to the collaboration from the city, and that's why I'm here today. And we have board members here today who like to say a few comments. We had astonishing help from the police department, the fire department, the parks department, the streets department. Several people in particular come to mind. Lou Madsen, who runs parks. There's a fellow, his name is Jay Russell, he's our electrician. He stopped his camping trip early so he could be in park and fix some electrical issues we had. John Williams took his day off and came to the park to help us out. It was very much of a collaborative effort. I want to say thank you in person to the city for being present, being so helpful. I'd also like to thank the elected officials who walked in yesterday's parade. I hope you found that to be fun. So those are my comments, and my colleagues will have a couple of words of their own.
On that committee, I just wanted to say thank you. I also wanted to say thank you to this and everyone else for acknowledging the dedication of that towards my folks. I know, again, that whole event started under Dad's tenure, and he's just so happy. I knew, and I know he would be even more happy to know it was still being done, and still being supported by everybody in the city with the council and all. So I just wanted to say thank you for that as well.
I'm Ashley Parker. I'm the new chair of First Nights. I'm taking over Carol Mandigo. I call myself the new Carol. I can't thank you guys enough. I've only lived here for 2 years, and the amount of support and seeing all the smiles and everyone being involved was just amazing. So it was such a great experience, and I just really appreciate all the help that we had and people staying there all day, making everything safe and having a fun time for all communities. So thank you so much.
Save me for last. I'm also a member of the committee, and I also would like to thank the city for their help, in particular John, Len, and so I see that.
Emily.
Oh, Emily, I'm sorry. We didn't meet. No, okay. Mary said I was there. I was like, I don't know. And of course you, Mark, for being there, and I really appreciate that. The city is blessed to have a committee like this who works to improve the quality of life for Oneonta. There were over 10,000 people in the park today. We don't have an exact number yesterday, so seems like still the same day. We don't have an exact number, but we do an awful lot of work fundraising and putting the event together, hiring the performers, and also managing the whole event, which is an enormous responsibility. I just want to say that in the future, we may be asking the city for some financial support to make sure that this is sustainable and continues in the future, because we think this and the Festival of Lights are very important events, and we think that they add tremendously to the quality of life here in the city. And we appreciate the support that you give us very, very much. And we think that down the line we can talk about a little bit more financial help, because it isn't an easy task. But thank you so much for your support as of yesterday. Appreciate it.
Thank you, and on behalf of the city of Oneonta, thank you all so much for all that you do to improve the quality of life in our community. It's just, it's an immeasurable contribution that you make. So thank you so much, and I'll open the dais to anybody else who might want to say something. Luke?
Yes, due to some unfortunate family circumstances, I wasn't able to be at the 4th yesterday, but I was there the year before, and especially in the midst of the COVID pandemic, to see everybody engaging in a safe way outside. 10,000 people in the summer is not quite double, but getting pretty close to what our population is in the summer. It's a beautiful thing to see. And speaking for myself, I really look forward to thinking about ways we can continue to support first night and 4th, because they're assets to Oneonta. Thanks all for your hard work.
To that extent, I wanted the chief also make some comments about yesterday's events. Did you not know how well it went?
It went extremely well. We didn't have a single call for service in the park at all. So it was a credit to the community. It was just a great family day. There was one missing child that I know of that was rejoined with his family within minutes. And not to speak for the fire department, but at least anecdotally, I think they've just handed out some Band-Aids. So in the 24 years that I've been doing this was by far the best 4th of July that we've had, and we were able to get the traffic out in almost record time, which was incredible. It used to take us some years in excess of 2 hours to clear the park, and we were able to do it in 20 minutes. So we changed strategies a little bit, and we've been honing in on some minor tweaks that we refine each year through after-action reports, and I think we're getting to the point where we're just looking for the extra hill width. You know, there's not a lot we can get out of it now, but 20 minutes is pretty fast.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Chief. Do we have any other comments?
I'll say one quick thing. As a former member of the First Night Committee, I know what goes into hosting these events, and it's a lot of work doing that kind of thing. And it was a wonderful celebration. I had a great time yesterday, so thank you all very much.
Thank you.
And I'll note that when.
I want to say thank you very much, David and Cindy and Doug. I know that you guys are putting long hours in, and I think it's a great opportunity to acknowledge not only the first night, but now we're going to be Hill City Celebration. That's great that you're changing the name to represent who we are. Sorry about the electricity. Hopefully by next year we'll have it 110% or 120, 121, whatever it takes to get you guys up and running. But also want to thank Ben Gunther for acknowledging his name, his organization, for the financial commitment that he is making to our community in many different events. I think that's amazing. I'm also hopeful that we get to see the drone coverage. I noticed during the fireworks that there was drone coverage, and so I hope we'll get an opportunity.
Who that was?
The positioning of the drone was absolutely.
It was doing great too. I saw the guy with the drone, and I couldn't catch up with him to find out who he was.
Maybe our police department will track him. But yeah, just the drone coverage for the day coverage and the fireworks was amazing. So thank you again, and thanks Ben for us.
Len and I are typically on the same page. He actually pretty much stole my... So with that, we thank you very much, and we look forward to the next thing you guys are doing, which I think is just...
The Festival of Lights.
The Festival of Lights. Can't wait.
Resting for a while.
Yes, I mean... So thank you again.
Thank you very much for your help.
And if we have any petitioners here, we do.
Yes. I don't know if you call me a petitioner or I want to tell you my point of view.
So if you just introduce yourself first.
Got it down.
You got it.
I usually don't read, but I had to today. Okay, Sophie Richardson. I have a very vested investment in downtown. Vested interest, I should say. Anyway, I'm a resident, a landlady, and a business owner. So I fill all the categories. Oh, and I'm also a customer downtown, so I fill all the categories of downtown. Okay, I've been around long enough to see many cycles that have occurred in our city, especially on Main Street. Some have been positive and some have been negative, but that's normal for life. I'm primarily here in response to the June 30th, 2022 article in the Daily Star, reporting on try to say this fast, Johnson Schmidt's thoughts on revitalizing the downtown area. I would have been here to hear her, but I did not know she was going to be here. Okay. She reported on Corning's endeavors, which was probably enlightening, but I didn't see a lot of emphasis in the article on small independent business owners besides giving them parking spaces. And I have to look for parking spaces even though I'm, full-fledged downtown. Anyway, but that's okay. Also, her emphasis from the article seemed to primarily apply to large developers, not to individual, independent landlords. I've been to presentations in the past given by representatives of Corning, the town and village, I don't know what their status is, and Saratoga. They sound like the perfect solutions to Oneonta when they give the presentations. Oh boy, let's do this, let's do this, let's do this. But Oneonta is not Saratoga. We do not have the backing of the racetrack and some other ventures there. We are not Corning that has a corporate giant to help them. Some of the examples that I learned about in the past was they loaned an architect, Corning Corporation, loaned an architect to the downtown merchants. So if you're a merchant and you want to improve the facade of your place, I could come in if I were the architect and say, listen, depending on your budget, now if you painted this and you moved the sign just about here, you could do it for this much money. If you have a little bit more money, then you could bring in some beautiful awnings, add additions to the front of your building, and they would give them all the options, which is great, but it was a free service, which I don't think we have an architect here. Anyway, the next thing, they loaned them a window display designer. That person would come into your retail shop and they have a theme. Let's pretend it's Easter, that's easy. So they had an Easter theme for Easter week or month or whatever. And they would come in and tell you how they're going to do your window. Notice the operative word, how they're going to do your window. They would pick things to honor the display, so it would be nice down the street. But did they have the merchandising capability of the owner of the business? Because I talked to some of those business people when I went to visit Corning, and they said they didn't have as much say into what went into the window that they wanted to sell than what was put in there. And that's important if you're trying to get rid of merchandise. Okay, so I'm urging you to please look and think beyond what professional presenters say. They do have a vested interest in furthering their business. The woman came here as an architect. She worked on Brazils. Of course she'd like more buildings to work on, and I don't blame her that she's in the business for that. But you've got to balance what she's saying to you, in my opinion. This is all my opinion, of course. And remember, again, some of you have been here for a long time, have heard me say this. Main Street has been kept alive and thrived by the efforts of and the personalities of the independent business people. I talk to a lot of people that visit Oneonta, and they say that our Main Street has a very welcoming personality. How did it get there? Part of it was when the merchants and the city worked together and make the physical, the lights, the banners and all that very nice looking. But it also has to do who runs the business, who they hire, what their personality is. And we really are starting to require some help. So I'd like to see Main Street kept viable, because that also helps bring college kids in, because their parents want to bring them to a nice place. You've heard me say that forever. And I do not want Main Street to become the stepsister of Market Street. Remember, we cannot put Main Street on the back burner while we develop Market Street. We already made that mistake in this city. We had a beautiful Wilbur Park, and what did we do in the last few years? I'm not criticizing, I'm just stating the fact. We developed Miller Park, and Wilbur Park got pretty seedy. So how about maintaining Main Street as we do develop Market Street, and aiding Main Street? To make it very simple, and it's sort of corny, if you have a house and you want to put on an addition, do you put on a splendid addition while your dishwasher is rattling, your toilet doesn't always flush, or you take care of the inside of the house as you're putting on your addition, or hold back some of the additions, part of the addition, so you can have a beautiful end product. So, the next thing, okay, so what I want you to take home from this, besides what I've already said, I want you to think about the independent business owners and landlords that have kept our Main Street viable and attractive. How can you help them? And if you want to see some bad Main Streets, go to the Mohawk Valley. Okay, do not forget them in favor of developers who we've seen promise one thing and give us another. Example. What's the hotel? The Clarion. They were supposed to have a brick facade. Did you see a brick facade on the Main Street side? Nope. The apartments on Deep Street. When I came to the first meeting when those developers were here, and they said it will take 50 parking spaces. And I said, are the 50 parking spaces the footprint of the building, or are you also including the dumpsters and all that? Oh, no, it's just the footprint of the building. So, and when you're making comparison with us and other cities, make sure that they are very similar entities. Thank you for your time, but I'm on my bandwagon all the time for Main Street. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Do we have any other petitioners? Okay, hearing none. Then we'll move on to our reports of our boards and commissions, beginning with our Commission on Community Relations and Human Rights, and that will be Councilmember Murphy. Thank you again, guys.
Thanks, Mayor. We had met last week. I left my big notes, so I'm working on my consolidated notes here. We met last week. I had a few things on the agenda, and one thing that's upcoming. Most of the conversation was geared around the Trailblazer Award and developing / redeveloping / re-examining categories, how we're going to go forward with age groups versus particular subcategories within an age group. And I believe there was a lot of discussion. I think we're more or less settled on that. And there was also just kind of a little bit of a recap of Juneteenth that had gone on a couple weekends ago in the park. And it was a great event from what I understand. I was unfortunately out of town and not able to be there. The final thing that we discussed was something towards the end, and it was actually kind of spurred by something that we've been working on, but also kind of by, we had a Girl Scout troop here asking what our city seal stood for. What was our city seal? And not many of us up here could answer that. So one thing the committee asked if I could do is if I could reach out to a contact I have in the United Nations to advise the commission going forward how we can look at how we represent certain groups of folks in the city, particularly Native Americans. So there is an ongoing correspondence there. Nothing really to report on that yet, just because at this point it's mostly introductions, but hopefully we'll get some more concrete advice going forward on how we can be better about our history.
Questions, comments for Councilmember Murphy? Thank you very much. Sure. Appreciate it. And moving then on to our committee reports, the Quality of Life and Infrastructure Committee, Councilmember Risberger.
Yes, thank you. We met on June 27th. We had a very full agenda. We started out with, there was a comment from a constituent here, Dr. Kurtz, who read an email that she had previously sent to the mayor with some concerns she had for Maple Street, which we then addressed later on in the meeting. Topics for discussion, we started out with summer programming. So we had Frank Russo and Sue Kurkowski from the YMCA that came and gave an outline of what the WISE requirements are for summer programming. And we thank them for doing that because they've had to do this quite often in the last year or so, since there's a lot of concerns about having enough summer programming and summer camps for kids in the region. So some of the things that they have to go through, they admitted that this is strictly what the Y does, not what everybody has to do. But they use a Presidium program through their insurance company that sets the rules. So they have extensive background checks. They operate on ratios, depending on the ages of the children that they're working with. Anyone under the age of 18 that works for the Y is not allowed to ever be alone with the kids. They also have a significant amount of ongoing training. And Frank reported that money is not the issue as far as the size of the programs that they have right now. It's really commitment to work is the problem, and getting people that are willing to work or able to work over the summer. They're basically like anywhere else in the country. With the exception of lifeguard staff. The lifeguard staff is currently full at 25, so that's great. We had a planning and development update from Judy and Gregory Tice. Judy presented a detailed chart regarding ongoing projects and funding sources. That's very helpful. It gave a very clear picture of where we are at with different programs. We had a discussion about snow and ice removal, even though it's July, well, it was June for that meeting. And it was really circulating around are we towing cars, are we ticketing cars? And this has been a point of discussion for a while now, because we have not been towing in the last couple of years. So, Brad reported that no towing of cars will take place unless a parked car makes the street impassable. When the city does tow, it usually takes OPD a minimum of 3 days per storm, correct me if I'm wrong, Chief, to recover due to the paperwork, the towing, honoring the impound lot, driving owners to the lot, et cetera, et cetera. We're also the only city we know of that actually tows everybody that's parked on the street when there's a storm. So the plan for now is to continue ticketing. It's approximately $100 a ticket during the storm, and collect data on the impact over the next year. And then if we figure we need to make changes, we'll come back and discuss some potentially make changes. There was a 282 request for alternate side of the street parking on Irving Place, and this came from a previous meeting because Irving Place is a very narrow street, and the alternate side of the street parking is kind of wacky over there. So there's times during the week where you've got parking allowed on both sides of the street, and it became a problem in the wintertime where when there's no snow on the ground and you've got two people going in either direction, you have people parking on either side, somebody's got to pull over while the other person passes. The trouble is there's not many residents on that street, and there's no clear one opinion on that street of what they want to do with it. Some people think it's fine, some want to have alternate side, like normal alternate sides of street parking. Some want it one way toward East Street, I believe. And so Greg and Chris took a look at that, and they looked at all the different scenarios, and they said that there's no one best way to deal with this. So for now, we've tabled it, because it sounds like no matter what we do, we're going to get people angry over on that street. So then River Street crosswalks and bike lanes, we're looking to do on the north side of River Street, potentially a bike lane. The south side would be a share lane. Scott's going to look to host a board meeting coming soon and discuss it with the residents, get their thoughts on it. In the meantime, the committee actually voted to pass that up to the council for the final discussion. So we thought the idea is valuable, but it'll be nice to know what comes out of your meeting, and then we can have a discussion with the council, we figured. Union Street crosswalks and speed. This has actually been tabled until the next meeting because we ran out of time. And then the last issue was actually dealing with the Maple Street concerns brought forward by Dr. Kurtz. And we had quite an extensive discussion about all the different issues. Luckily, the chief was here, so we could get his input. And then when we were done, I sent an email back to Dr. Kurtz, and she had left the meeting. And we addressed each one of the issues. So that's it.
Great. Questions for Dave? I've got one real quick one. So the conversation with Catherine Kurtz that happened on the other side, she's feeling like she's taken care of at this point?
No. She doesn't. But I think I think her opinion was that there's not much that can be done. That she didn't necessarily agree with us on some of the issues, but as far as some of her concerns are really around the West Street construction, and once that is over with, we're not going to see these giant trucks coming down Maple Street anymore. One of the issues with the no truck traffic sign on Maple Street, that never existed there, according to city records. The dogs, what I told her is I strongly encourage her next time if she has an issue with the dog to immediately call OPD, or she can call me to let me know, and we can get that taken care of. A stop sign or speed bump cannot be placed on Maple Street at Potter Avenue because that would actually be very dangerous to the traffic pattern. But what the chief did decide to do is you set up a speed study on Maple Street the very next day, which is fantastic. And then there were some other student issues regarding student housing, tree saplings broken, which we hadn't had any reports in recent years of tree saplings being broken. So I remember a bunch of years back, they were. And then strangers eating or lingering on their property. I advise her to immediately call the PD, or she can contact me regarding that.
A reasonable total address of what we're concerned. That's all I think anybody could ask. Thank you. All right, moving on then to Council Member Carson and a report on the Finance and Human Resources Committee meeting.
Thank you, Mayor. We have also on June 27th, all committee members who were in attendance, and at 8 through L for agenda items. So everything was moved up, except for August 2nd, we're going to go for a full council presentation on the Medicare eligibility audit, which ties in with motion number 9, front of you tonight. Craig's going to talk a little bit about that, but as I say, we're going to be looking at hiring a police officer, helping out our finance department with a finance coordinator and I forget which department, the administrative specialist codes. We have individuals that have obtained special training and certifications, and that's what motion 8 represents. So we appreciate that, along with the opportunity that it could potentially save the city money without having to outsource all aspects. Carrie walked us through motion 10, which I believe will help out any council member if they're continuing on with formal education, that they'll be able to zoom in, or maybe myself out helping out my grandson. So let's see what else we got. Motion 11 is just basically what we've been doing. Judy, correct me if I'm wrong, but typically we've been staying at the $200,000 mark, and now moving up to $300,000 to get funds out there to help small business operators, independent.
Number 11, that's for the BOA, the Brownfield Opportunities Area application.
I stand corrected, but I know that we've been working on trying to secure money for
Thank you.
independent business owners and building owners. I think that covers it. Try to handle any questions.
Yes, Dave. The two motions, 6 and 7, are regarding finance coordinator. Can you, in a nutshell, give us an idea of what the difference is between finance coordinator versus our finance chair and deputy finance person that we have now?
This is
Or not finance chair, but between Ginny's job and our deputy finance person.
This is a separate position.
Well, I understand that, but what's the difference in job duties?
The job duties are very similar to our previous accountant job duties. There will just be less accounting work. What we did is we advertised an accountant position and we advertised the finance coordinator position to make a wider net to see how many applications we would get. The accountant position, we only got 2 applications, but the finance coordinator, we got about 30. And so we had a much larger pool to choose from. Had to do with qualifications for each position, and it also had to do with less accounting work on the finance coordinator side, which is fine. It'll work for the office. And our candidate is absolutely excellent. I've gotten many phone calls about how wonderful she is and how she's going to be a great asset to the city. So it's going to be a great team member for the city, and hopefully she'll have a long career with us. The finance coordinator is a new title that the civil service had approved, I want to say 2 or 3 years ago. We didn't have this title before because we always had the position filled with an accountant. But this person will be doing accounts payable and water, sewer billing, collection, payroll, a very wide variety of duties.
Okay.
And the reason we titled it finance coordinator is because she'll be touching basically every aspect of the finance office.
Okay. All right, thanks, Jane.
You're welcome.
And also gave on the salary range, this individual is going to be starting at the beginning.
Yeah.
So,
Anything?
Yeah, I figured, ask for clarification. Now, on motion number 4, I was just curious about, I guess a little more explanation about what does hiring a new rate without certification mean for this position? What certification is lacking? Or chief?
So it's prior to the academy.
Okay.
So basically they're paid for the academy, and after the academy, they would get a bump after they finish their field training and state requirements.
Okay, so they'll go to the academy before they officially start?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you for clarification.
You're welcome.
Chief, when would he go into the academy? When does it start?
July 28th will be the start date for the academy. It's a Monday, and that academy runs about 4 months. It's a bit shorter than Brewer's, but we have to backfill for some training that's optional through New York State. So he'll get all of the state required training that we need to get him out on the road and be productive. And we'll backfill the rest as we go forward through either Brewer or other training venues, should they present as an opportunity.
Sounds good.
Good. Any other questions? No. Then Len, if we could keep you going and have you provide a report on the Economic Development Committee.
So we met on Tuesday, June 28th. I'm trying to read my notes. We talked about the homestead tax exemption. The committee as a whole, correct me if I'm wrong, as a whole, I'm going to email Hank Schrecker, who is the assessor for the county, who, as we all know, the county took over the assessing for the city. We're going to bring him in to discuss the homestead tax exemption to see how we can help economic development. We talked about the disconnect between government and business. Yes, $35,000 for the micro enterprise. Sorry, I had that wrong in my notes. I apologize for that. I believe we're looking for businesses that are small businesses with 5 employees or fewer. So this is where we're thinking the greatest amount of energy can go towards downtown and other places within Leona, so that we're going to be exploring that more. Judy's been very helpful with that aspect. She explains the CDBG grants up to $100,000, but for every $25,000 in that grant, you have to have at least 1 new employee. And she also went on to talk about the economic development grant, which is up to $750,000. And again, for every $15,000, you have to produce 1 employee. As Councilmember Mark Davies was just showing us before June 30th, our website had a soft launch. I'm assuming that went well. I see two heads.
Yes.
Going very well. And under the occupancy challenges in internet access, I have downtown Oneonta Works has space that's already set up, so I haven't done my homework yet. I haven't made it over there yet since our meeting, but I need to get over there and check that out, because that's one of the things we're looking for is there high-speed internet access in a building space for anyone that wants to have that ability to get in and plug into the world. Housing Commission. I think that's all I have. Is there anything else?
No, I would just add one thing, which I thought was a really sort of poignant question / challenge that was mentioned by Judy during the meeting, which is that the grants that we have available are very helpful for participation is a challenge, and that's one of the things that we're talking about, disconnect between government and business owners. What do we have available and how do we get people to take advantage of it? But then the additional challenge of like, how do we market these opportunities to people who don't already live in the community? So I think that's something that we should be going forward.
Good. Any questions for Len on this? No. Okay. Very good. And that takes us to the end of our committee and commission reports, and we'll move to the city administrator.
Thanks, Mayor. Current employment opportunities, we're still accepting applications for a full-time equipment operator, DPW streets crew. Which really it right now. We do have a police officer exam announced. That's going to be held on September 17th. So please spread the word. We want as many applicants as we can get. We'll be current vacancies. Big thanks, as everyone stated at the beginning of the meeting, to the police, fire, DPW, Blue Lansing for their work on the 4th of July event. It takes a lot of coordination, and they really stepped up. UKG payroll processing systems rolling out this week citywide. Haven't heard any issues so far, but I think we're pretty happy with that going on. And I talked to Dean Ford last week. He was excited, confident the program is going to roll out smooth. Greenway Trail paving was completed. Micro paving and crack sealing on various city streets was completed last week. There will be some more milling and paving happening later this summer to be announced. Some 2021 sidewalk repairs that had not been completed last fall were completed. We still have another bid going on for additional sidewalk work in 2022.
They look great. I'm really excited about my working for a lot of that.
A lot more. Our street lights that have been upgraded, there are some outstanding issues that will be addressed through our O&M agreement, operations maintenance agreement with NYPA that is in place now, so that should be happening soon. We'll have a pavement markings bid going out soon. Happy to say the West Street reconstruction project is still on schedule. We'll be issuing sometime at the end of this month $3.6 million in bonds that have been previously authorized by the council for the West Street project and the street lights project. Rover Pool open July 1st. Unfortunately, we still have one outstanding issue. The baby pool is not open at this point. The sand filter needs some new sand, essentially. So I believe that's going to be the next week or two. We'll have that replaced and get that open. Parks crews are working. We had a couple complaints about or concerns about Field 6 conditions, which you'll recall we dedicated $50,000 to this fall. It's not now to this fall. We do that next year. So the Parks crew is doing their best to try to make our customers happy this season, but it should be a big improvement after this fall. Our streets crew, working with our city forester, are going to be planting 20 Liberty elm trees in various locations. I don't have that full list in front of me now, but I could share it with you if you'd like. I know some of them are going to go in the parks and the rest on the city streets. And I know there's also some other planning going on with some college students working with Mark Davies and John Williams and Chris. I think they're talking about along the mill race between James Jorgensen Ave and the left sideway overpass. There's a lot of ash trees there that are unfortunately going to die after the being part of town. So we're going to plant some trees there to grow in their place. The renovation of the clerk's office is starting this week, and that's really just the entrance to the office. It's going to open things up. There's a closet. We're turning it into part of the hallway right by the elevator that should make it a little bit more accessible for customers and just provide a better customer experience overall. I'm sure Carrie will be excited when that's done. It should take 3 or 4 weeks. After that point, we'll have vinyl with that and the clerk's interactions will happen at that meeting. And then, as Glenn mentioned on your agenda tonight, I think it's number 9, finance and personnel offices have recommended to hire this company to advocate for certain retirees, city retirees that are on the city health insurance plan who are eligible to transition to Medicare. If they do so, Medicare in combination with a supplemental city plan is actually a better benefit and it's less expensive to the city. So it would save us some costs, provide the same benefits to the retirees. This consultant has the expertise to be able to go through our records and identify those individuals who might be eligible, help them make that transition. If they're able to successfully do that per retiree transition, the city would pay $2,500. That money would be more than made up with the savings that we would realize, and the employee would see no change in benefit. Anything to add there, Jenny?
No, you got it, thank you.
That was all I had.
Okay. So, any questions for her? Yes, Len?
On the West Street project, you said it was on schedule, great. Financially, how are we?
Any other questions? No. I will, but for a quick shout out to Gene and the rest of the crew for their efforts in moving all of these various offices. Dispense with my remarks, but thank you very much for getting me moved, and the office looks good, and then honestly, I feel like we may have landed in exactly the right place. We've got a nice big conference to be able to use to our advantage, I think, as staff. For my meetings, I'm very pleased with it and very pleased with the way the entire process went. But outside of that, I'll dispense with my remarks and we'll move on to the consent agenda. So we have the approval of the minutes. Motion number 1, that the Common Council approves the minutes of the regular meeting held June 21st, 2022. Motion number 2, that the Common Council approves the minutes of the special meeting held June 29th, 2022. Number 3, motion that the Common Council approves the warrants totaling $762,927.18, that the same be placed on the Director of Finance's desk for payment as presented. From the Finance and Human Resources meetings, we heard motion number 4, that the Common Council appoints Brian Page to the position of police officer at a base annual salary of $41,000, PBA hiring rate without certification, effective July 18, 2022, subject to the satisfaction of all applicable civil service requirements. Motion number 5, that the Common Council appoints Gwyneth Germon to the position of Administrative Specialist at a base annual salary of $31,766, CSEA grade 5, effective July 11, 2022, subject to the satisfaction of all applicable civil service requirements. Motion number 6, that the Common Council establishes the title of Finance Coordinator, subject to all applicable civil service requirements, allocated to the Administrative Personnel Manual salary grade A2, with a standard workday of 8 hours. Motion number 7, that the Common Council appoints Stephanie Decker to the position of Finance Coordinator at a base annual salary of $50,000, Administrative Personnel Manual salary grade A2, effective July 11, 2022, subject to the satisfaction of all applicable civil service requirements. Motion number 8, that the Common Council authorizes the mayor to execute a memorandum of agreement with the CSEA Local 1000, ASME, AFL-CIO, City of Oneonta Unit 8101, to provide an annual stipend in the amount of $500 to working supervisor Eugene Russell for additional out-of-title electrical duties to be performed as authorized by the city's Board of Examining Electricians. Motion number 9, that the Common Council authorizes the mayor to execute a contract with ALSUP LLC for a Medicare eligibility audit of participants of the city's of Oneonta's health insurance plan, subject to review by the city attorney as presented. Motion number 10, that the Common Council approves approves the resolution to authorize limited use video conferencing in certain scenarios to be set by future procedures. Thank you, Carrie. Motion number 11, that the Common Council approves the resolution to authorize the submission of a New York State Consolidated Funding application and to accept a New York State Department of State Brownfield Opportunity Area Program grant if awarded in the amount of up to $300,000 with a 10% local match for a BOA nomination study as presented. Motion number 12, that the Common Council approves the following resolution. Whereas the City of Oneonta desires to apply for up to $500,000 in financial assistance to the New York State Main Street Program, and whereas the application proposes funding to assist 47 Chestnut Street LLC with building stabilization work at 47 Chestnut Street, aka the Oneonta Theater, and whereas 47 Chestnut Street LLC will be responsible for providing the 25% required local match, and whereas the proposed funding will contribute to the ongoing community and downtown revitalization efforts, now therefore be it resolved that Mark Drenick, as mayor of the City of Oneonta, is hereby authorized and directed to file an application for funds from the New York State Office of Community Renewal through its New York Main Street program for and upon approval of said request to enter into and execute a project agreement with the state for such financial assistance to the City of Oneonta for the Oneonta Theater Stabilization Project. Be it further resolved that the Common Council authorizes the mayor to order any necessary budget amendments, budget revisions, and/or transfers, and to take any actions and to provide any additional information that might be required to undertake the proposed grant application, acceptance, or execution. Motion number 13, that the Common Council authorizes the mayor to sign the vendor agreement for the City of Oneonta to participate in the New York State Low-Income Housing Water Assistance Program as presented. 14, that the Common Council authorizes the Director of Finance to accept a donation in the amount of $100 from Destination Oneonta to be used for the Kids Movie Night held in Newar Park on Friday, June 24th, and authorizes any necessary budget amendments for said acceptance. And finally, motion 15, that the Common Council authorizes the Director of Finance to accept a gift in the amount of $1,000 from an anonymous donor as a token of appreciation for the many benefits received from the city, and authorizes any necessary general fund budget amendments for said acceptance. Do we have a motion to approve? Oh. I was so confident. Any to be removed? Yes.
2 and 10, please.
2 and 10. Any others to be removed? Okay, so outside of motions number 2 and 10, do I have a motion to approve? Len, followed by Mark David, and with the clerk.
Councilmember Murphy?
Aye.
Councilmember Davies?
Yes.
Councilmember Risberger?
Yes.
Councilmember LaPartie?
Aye.
Councilmember Carson?
Yes.
Councilmember Harrington?
Yes.
Councilmember Raptor?
Yes.
Councilmember Falcon?
Aye.
Terrific. And Luke, motion number 2.
Need a motion first.
I will motion.
I'll second.
So Luke, motion number 2.
Yes, this will be quick. I was absent, so I would like to abstain from this motion.
Yeah, that's fine. Any other discussion on this? Okay, then if the clerk will call the roll.
Councilmember Murphy?
Abstain.
Councilmember Davies?
Yes.
Councilmember Risberger?
Yes.
Councilmember LaPartie?
Aye.
Councilmember Carson?
Yes.
Councilmember Harrington?
Aye.
Councilmember Raptor?
Yes.
Councilmember Falcon?
Aye.
So let's see if I can get this one right. Do I have a motion to approve motion number 10? Luke, followed by Mark Davies. Thank you very much for playing along. And Luke?
Yeah, this is another really quick. I just wanted to thank our city clerk and city attorney for working on this. Judging by the email, it looked like it was, when this was kind of announced, that things had to be adjusted. It looked like it was quite a process. I want to thank both of you and whoever else worked on it, but I know both of you did specifically for your hard work. I really appreciate it.
Any other comments?
Can I just ask a quick question, which I figured I would ask afterward, but since we pulled it, I'll ask now. Does this include or remove, and I read it, and I guess I'm just asking for clarification, the requirement that the location of the person who's video conferencing in be like publicized and people available to come to wherever they are? Did I word that?
The short answer is it'll be covered by the policy and procedure. What this does is it lets us move forward to the policy and procedure. If we're allowing people to attend in a limited video conferencing circumstance, it's based on a circumstance that would prevent them from appearing in public. So it would remove the necessity to have the 3-day announcement of their location.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
Any other discussion? Questions? No?
If I can make one quick comment. This is still a work in progress, because the rules as they're set up, in my opinion, carry sometimes do the impossible that I think cannot be done. But the current statutory mechanism that's in place for doing it on a regular basis, with everywhere, we have boards and commissions that can do it on a regular basis, and where the county council do it on a regular basis. I don't think it's practical. I don't think that anyone can really comply with it. So what this is as circumstances demand. So it's not going to be something that we'll always implement or regularly implement, or, well, if you're on vacation, well, that's no problem, then you can always come in. And so it's going to have to be based on a certain kind of particular circumstances, healthcare needs, childcare needs, something that creates a circumstance that makes it impractical to be there, just not simply because you don't feel like showing up. So that's what we're currently working with. As this thing progresses, I think we'll eventually, a year or two, maybe 3, get to a point where we're attending remotely, as long as you still have a core quorum available at the public, at the main public place where participants can be there and come and participate. Where we're going to end up. But right now, we're kind of putting something together that's legal, but it's going to be, just understand that this is not the end.
Sure. That said, any further discussion among council members? No, in that case,
Councilmember Murphy?
Aye.
Councilmember Davies?
Yes.
Councilmember Murphy?
Yes.
Councilmember LaParisio?
Aye.
Councilmember Carson?
Yes.
Councilmember Harrington?
Yes.
Councilmember Rafford? Yes. Councilmember Falco?
Aye.
That concludes the consent agenda, and we then move into any discussion that there may be on the heels of the presentation from Elise. And we talked about a couple of questions that might have needed to hear more information coming from both Greg and I on the LDC. I believe the other was on the status of the bid. I don't believe that we heard any other, or received any other questions, Greg. No. So let me start with the LDC, if that works for you. Good. Okay, so the LDC is something that was frankly discovered. The previous iteration of that had been something that had not actually been activated. It occurred during the past administration. It's now, unfortunately, as those folks who are determined as officers in that LDC, are 2 of them are no longer with the city. We will pursue a new version of that. What the LDC will allow us to do, we will find out. My sense of it is, frankly, that there's so much value in our having the option, and so little that is required of us in order to pursue that option. It makes a ton of sense to pursue it. It's going to take a little bit of additional research to find out how creatively we might be able to use that. But as we were talking, as Sophie actually had mentioned earlier on, if we can come up with some options that will allow us to provide resources to the business sector that don't currently exist, and to our housing sector that don't currently exist, and potentially other places, this is a good thing. And so we will pursue it, and we will keep you informed. And as we are able to determine the wherewithal of what we may be able to do with this, we'll present those plans. They'll most likely run through economic development, I would imagine. And those plans will then be brought to council. Mark, you have further questions?
No, I was going to ask if they come to council as well, because I'm not always able to catch all the other meetings.
As far as the bid is concerned, I sent around a video that we had done a year and a half, it was exactly a year and a half ago, where in my role as a board council member, I worked with just a handful of local businesses and building owners so that they could get some understanding of what a bid is. That video, hopefully everyone's had an opportunity to look at, although if you haven't, it's still going to be available to you when you do have time. Our 8th Ward Council member, ably represented.
So I will say that I have not had a chance, since last week to view the entire video, but it's in my plans to kind of learn a little bit more about how the bid could benefit us. And last week I did reach out to one individual who I thought was kind of facilitating the bid, and I did not hear anything back. So I think, for me, my next steps is just kind of going to try to engage with some people and see if, without conflict of interest, trying to help facilitate maybe some kind of unification of downtown business owners to see if this could be a possibility, to kind of help us all apply for different grants as an entity, as kind of a unified entity, and so that's where I'm at right now.
Great. So bottom line is that's going to be an ongoing conversation with various merchants and building owners, and if there's a bid in the future, it'll be their decision. Certainly there's an interest in the city of being supportive of that. So we'll see where that goes. I don't believe there was anything else outside of those two questions, unless someone has something that they want to ask now, we may be able to answer. If not, then we'll move on for this discussion and move to correspondences.
You have none.
We have no correspondences. And is there a need for an executive session? There is no need for an executive session. In that case,